Hi, I'm Beckah Krahula. Welcome to my studio. Zentangle is an incredible tool, and I am definitely a passionate tangler. I am really excited to have you here today to share this with you. So let's get started. To get started, I'd like to share some examples of Zentangles as I give you some information about tangling. This is one art form that has its own vocabulary, and pretty soon you'll find it easy to catch on to. Zentangle was created by Rick Roberts and Maria Thomas. I always like to say he's the Zen and she's the Tangle. They worked hard together to create a series of steps that allow anyone to achieve a heightened state of focus at any time, anywhere, any place. What Rick and Maria called a heightened state of focus, many artists and athletes today also call it being in the zone. Zentangle uses repetitive patterns that are called tangles. We refer to someone who is drawing tangles as a tangler. A tangler focuses on the strokes that make up the patterns as they draw. When you're doing this, you're literally planning where you're about to draw that line and watching the tip of the pen as you create the line you're drawing. As we become engrossed in the drawing, our focus shifts into the zone. One of the reasons that it's so helpful for an artist to be in the zone is that when we are in that state, we are using our instinct, intuition, and knowledge as one. This is really helpful. I find during this time my work flies together. I don't lose time second guessing myself or being distracted or being indecisive. And at the end of the day, when I look up at the clock, I am always amazed at what time it is, because to me it has seemed like merely an hour when it's actually been 6 or 7 hours. In all my years as an artist, I have never found a more steadfast way to place my mind in the zone. I am often asked, what is Zentangle? Well, the word actually has two meanings. It can refer to the process of creating a meditative tile, but it also refers to the tile that was created using the Zentangle method. These tiles that I have been showing you are all Zentangles. Though many of them use the same patterns, they do not look alike. A Zentangle is a miniature abstract work of art. It's created from a collection of patterns, and it is not meant to represent anything. I find that there are times where my work will reflect mainly organic forms, and then there'll be other times where I'll go through a streak where many of my patterns are geometric. The best part of it is, because nothing is planned, there is never going to be two tiles coming out the same way. A Zentangle tile is created from art paper, and it measures 3.5 by 3.5 inches. Or in centimeters, that would be 8.9 by 8.9. The official tiles are made from a printing paper by Fabriano, and it is a 240-pound paper. The only other items required to tangle are an 01 drawing pen, a pencil, a blending stub, or what other people call a tortillon. The size allows the art to be completed in 20 to 30 minutes, yet it is big enough to allow the artist to take their time and spend as long as they want. Zentangle is meant to be a surprise that unfolds before the creator's eyes. The drawings are intentionally not pre-planned. Without a plan or an expectation, the artist's eyes are open to the unexpected. Tangling teaches us to be comfortable working with our intuition, instincts, and knowledge as one while we are creating. In the process of creating a Zentangle, we look at our work from every angle to see the unexpected opportunities as the art evolves. The wonderful thing about Zentangle is that, like life, a Zentangle is a work in progress. This tile is not a Zentangle. It is a Zia. Zia stands for Zentangle Inspired Art, and although it's on a tile and drawn with an 01 pen, it was shaded with color, making it a Zia. Let's get out our sketchbooks and practice a few tangles before we do a tile. Our first tangle is tipple. Tipple is created by drawing circles that touch one another. They don't have to be the same size. Just try to draw as perfect a circle as you can for the moment. Fill the area with the various circles. Once you have your area filled, come in between the spaces where they don't connect and draw another circle that you repeat over and over. Our next tangle is a maze, and it is rather like a meandering line. The closer you draw the lines together, the darker the tonal pattern will be. And the further away you keep the lines from one another, the lighter tonal pattern it will create. This can make some very interesting patterns when covering a background. There really is no rhyme or reason to a maze. Printemps is our next tangle. Printemps is really a closed coil that are most successful when you evenly space your rings as you draw around. And like tipple, we want them to touch. When we are tangling, we use many things to create depth, and several of the ways that we create depth have been called or labeled tangle enhancers. The first one of these I'd like to talk about is called a sparkle. A sparkle is a highlight, and we put it in when we're drawing by lifting our pen, just like this, and then coming back down after you leave a small space and continuing until you finish the coil. If you set the first sparkle on a piece at 11 o'clock, all of them should fall at 11 o'clock. The next tangle enhancer that we're doing here is called rounding, and rounding adds to depth also. It's nothing more than coloring in those little spaces that lie between the closed coils. There are no erasers in Zentangle, so if you do something that you don't like, it's just an opportunity to change your mind and create a new stroke, as I did right there. Our next pattern is called Knight's Bridge. Knight's Bridge will look familiar to you all. It resembles a checkerboard. Take your time to fill in your squares, but if you do find you've made a mistake, you can always just weight the line a little bit like I've done here, and then continue on. You can make changes to your tangles, and when you do, it's called a tangulation. Here, Knight's Bridge has been done on the diagonal, and instead of coloring in the squares, I'm just going to put a dot on the squares that would be the black spaces. Hullabow is our last practice tangle, and for this one, let's create a little square to draw it in. Begin by drawing two parallel lines close together. Move your sketchbook so it's easy to create the lines, and every time you come to a previously drawn parallel line, lift your pen, skip over the ones drawn before, and continue on your way. This tangle always reminds me of a stack of boards that I'm looking down upon. You want to keep drawing the boards until you have filled up your area as much as you'd like. Then come in with your pen and color in the background between the boards. If you make a little mistake, again, just change the line and continue on. There are no mistakes in Zentangle, so there are no erasers. At the end of drawing a tile, we then shade. So before we move on to doing a tile, let's shade the tangles that we have just created, starting with Hollybough. You want to grab your pencil, choose a direction from which the sun or the light source is coming, and then shade the boards underneath on the opposite side of the light source. Then I'm going to take my blending stub or my tortillon and blend. When I blend tipple, again, I'm using the light source from the left upper side. So I'm going to grab my pencil, and on the little circles, I'll add a little shade at the bottom right hand side. Then blend it out. When we're blending, we're gradiating our shadow or graphite. But you don't want to gradiate the whole area. After all, if you turn it all gray, then we won't have any dimension. It'll just be gray instead of white. With patterns like a maze, I often just do one side and then the lower bottom. Here at Printemps, our sparkle tells us where the shadow will be. It'll always be the opposite side of where a sparkle is. So here, I'm using my pencil to weight the opposite end of each of the little closed coils, then coming in and gradiating out the graphite. When I've completed shading the coils, I like to add a little bit of shadow on the opposite edge of the coils from where the sun was. Let's shade Knightsbridge. I pretty much treat it like a maze. Now that we've completed shading our practice tangles, I'd like to do a high-speed demonstration of me creating a tile. I have before me the step outs to creating a Zentangle, a blending stub, a pen, and a pencil. I admire my paper first, then pick up a pencil and put a dot in each corner. I now connect the dots to create a border. We're now going to divide the inside of our border with a free and spontaneous line. This is called a string. When we create our strings, I like to pick up my tile and look at it from each direction and see if I like it. On the spare journal page, I've created a bunch of squares with strings inside them to show you how no two strings should ever be the same. So each time when you create one, it is your only time during a Zentangle that you are free and spontaneous. Re-examine your tile from every angle, decide where you want to start your tangling and which pattern you want to start with, and start drawing it in that section. I have decided to use print temps first. I'm varying the size of my print temps so it's a little more interesting for the eye and filling in this large area. As I draw each one, my concentration is on the nib of my pen and where it's going. Turn your tile to make it easier to put your patterns where they need to go. Though I'll go ahead and put my rounding in right now, I won't shade until the whole tile is finished. Our string is a suggestion, and you can decide to fill every section on the tile, or you can decide to leave some sections blank. You may even decide to ignore it and just draw right over it. This is why we never do the string in pen, always in a pencil. This way it doesn't stand out like the outline of a coloring book, and it allows you to be spontaneous and take advantage of the opportunities that evolve as you're drawing. Notice even when I'm just filling in these little rounded areas, I continually turn my tile so I can reach where I need to get into it as efficiently as possible. When I have completed the pattern in that section, I'll again put down my pen and examine my tile from every direction to see where I want to start drawing next. Once I've decided, I put up my pen and continue on drawing. The next tangle I've decided to use is called Flux. I decided to continue Flux up into the above section from which I started it. I pick up my tile and I turn it several ways and decide to do a viney tangulation of Flux in the opposite direction to add more pattern to this section. I weight some of the lines to add dimension and depth, and then examine my tile again. I see a few more places to add a few more strokes. put down my pen and again turn the tile from every angle and examine what I want to do next. I've decided that I'm going to ignore this section of my string and continue print temps up into this section. I pick up my tile and decide this area in here needs a little something to move the eye around. So I decide to place Hullabaloo in there. This helps move the eye throughout my whole piece. So I decide that I have enough in there and I'm going to now go in and fill in the negative space behind the lines. Once again, when I'm finished, I pick up my tile, I look at it from every angle. I decide that we need a little more rounding over here where the flux is and to wait a few more of the leaves to add some dimension to that side. As I make my way around, I continue to turn my tile and look at it from all directions. I check my design for balance and depth as I work. Once I finish that, I again examine my tile from each section, find areas that might need a few touches. Now I come in and put in my shading now that the whole tile is completely drawn. My light source for this tile is coming from the upper left-hand side. I use my blending stub to gradiate out the graphite that I've put in the shadowed areas. And I continue making my way across the tile, adding the shadows where they're needed. I stop and re-look at my tile one more time, see if there's anything needed. I decide to darken the shadows in a few areas. I like to build up my shadows gradually rather than getting it too dark in any one area. When you're finished, you're going to use your initials in a stylish pattern on the front, sign your name to the back, and I put a little note that I had done this for Wanderlust. Now you're ready to start tangling. Get out your supplies and give it a go. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed creating with you today. I hope you'll always remember, keep creating. It will change your world. Thanks for joining me.